we had a conversation a while ago, and I believe you mentioned about a drone.
Yeah. So that's going to be the next thing on LinkedIn, Mike. So,
welcome to the Ground Investigation Podcast, a show featuring interviews and insights from leaders in the geotechnical and geo-environmental business world. Join host Michael Taylor as he discusses the ups and downs of running a business in the GI industry, getting geological experts to share their learnings and lessons, as well as their plans for the future, highlighting what they think will improve the ground investigation industry moving forward. Now, here is your host, Michael Taylor.
Okay, so no one knows of this yet.
We've procured it, and it was procured in part through the Cornwall Growth Hub.
Okay.
So it was part grant funded, and the drone that we've got is a little bit special, as are the cameras that come with it.
Uh-huh.
So we've got amazing photogrammetry, but even better LiDAR capabilities. And it is staggering.
Uh-huh.
It is just staggering. It's like video game stuff.
Yeah.
And the amount of information it can obtain in just minutes of flight is incredible. The LiDAR shoots 1.3 million points of lasers every second.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. The battery life on this thing is 40 minutes. So if you've got a big enough site, I don't know how many points of data that is. But we've also had to buy out an enormous processing computer to go alongside it. So it takes a lot of power to process those hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of points of data into the 3D models that we're looking to provide clients. But that will be rolled out shortly. I hope to do sort of a big reveal. You've spoiled the secret. I hope to do a big reveal and get some models up on LinkedIn so we can show people the capabilities. Because I know people are used to drones, but do they realize exactly what they can do? Honestly, some of the models, 3D Revit models that you can stick your cursor on and you can move around, it's like being in a video game. It's absolutely insane.
It's a huge application. And it's only going to become more prevalent, I think, isn't it, the use of drones?
So it ticks a lot of boxes. And firstly, in terms of speed and efficiency and the level of detail, mind-blowingly fast, mind-blowing levels of detail. Things like cliff stability assessments, you've got to remember that actually safety is a big deal. So whether you're standing below the cliff looking up or whether you're trying to dangle someone off a rope to do roped access work, assessing the cliff, you can bypass a lot of that now with the level of detail that a drone survey will give you. So we can risk mitigate on a number of different levels. It's awesome stuff. I can't wait to get it out there.
Everyone should have a drone, I think.
They're great toys. I mean, they're absolutely fantastic toys. But ours is a proper commercial drone. The thing's got a wingspan of about 1 meter. It's got a 4 kilogram odd payload capacity. It's just insane. Hopefully next week and a half, we'll get it up on LinkedIn and you'll be able to see for yourself the capabilities of what it can do. Put some videos up and some models up, I hope.
We're going to have to beat this podcast release, aren't you, really?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Doesn't matter. The secret will be out there. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry. Yeah, we've got that. We've got our window sampling rig.
Yeah,
that's out day to day. Carl's our NVQ qualified driller on that, which is fantastic. We've got our soil aerator, which is picking up a lot of work now. We speculated on that at the start of the summer. Probably the wrong time to worry about decompacting gardens as the start of the summer. We loosely identified a problem a couple of years ago with a developer who came to us and said, all of our back gardens on remediated sites are flooding. What's going on? How do we prevent this? And it should start with correct use of materials, making sure that they're treated properly, making sure that they're placed properly, and that the ground workers don't go in afterwards and stick scaffold boards on it and compact it. And it's just gardens.
Yeah.
A lot of those problems are unavoidable. So we found a soil decompactor, which is fundamentally, it's an air compressor on a jackhammer, but with almost like a needle instead of a point, which goes into the ground. And we can inject compressed air. It causes the ground to swell and heave and open up fissures in the ground, only in the top 400, 600, 800.
Yeah.
And then it's got a secondary lever which injects sand under high pressure. So it keeps all those fractures and fissures open, effectively forming miniature soakaways. Little miniature soakaways. And we do that on sort of a meter grid spacing, diamond offset pattern in back gardens. And some of the conditions that we've seen have been instantly noticeable as to how the ground drains. Water that's been trapped in the surface is just wicking down and away from the lawns, gone from being grey, brown, rotting roots back to being sort of really vibrant green. Animals, insects coming back, burrowing through it, worm casts. Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's something else that we're hoping this winter is going to get a lot more attention. So we'll be pushing that a bit more. But that's going to be, well, that's already out on a few jobs now. So yeah, that's earning its keep as well. It's good. And again, it gives us that little bit of variety. It's not really ground investigation stuff, but it's something which it's almost a tale which has spurred off of our work from a problem which a client identified. So it's pretty cool. It's interesting stuff.
So with that, do you have kind of house owners contacting the company direct for that service, or do you have maybe the house builder who's maybe able to consolidate the soil and doing it on a larger scale?
Yeah, it's more the latter. So we've used it for arboricultural purposes as well. So we've had tree consultants come to us and say, there's been a development. They've worked in the root protection zone. They've compacted the roots. Can you come in and sort of loosen the soil as well? So we've done that aspect of it. So there is an individual client aspect, but largely we will get called in because 5 plots of these back gardens are flooding. And what can you do to help? So putting things like French drains, constructing French drains around the perimeters doesn't solve the problem of the compacted soil. It takes some water away, but it doesn't solve it. You're still going to end up with a dead, dying lawn. Coming in and trying to aerate the ground, coming in and trying to sort of install those miniature soakways to get the water wicking away. That's really solving the problem.
Yeah, that gets rid of it. Actually, I stayed at an Airbnb a little while ago, and the back garden seems to be like clay soil, and it rained, just sat there. And I think the whole area was like all new build houses.
Yeah, mate.
Get the garden right, at least, because what's the point? It's not really functional. As soon as it rains, it just sits there.
We've had some down here that have been in the summer.
Yeah,
completely saturated.
Yeah,
I mean, like soft to walk on, muddy to walk on. It's like, oh Christ, that's not fun for anyone.
It ruins it, and you're not allowed back in the house because you've got muddy shoes at that point, so you can't really enjoy a garden.
Can't let the dog out.
That's exactly what. Especially if you go in and it's carpet straight away, that's it. Sorry, dog, you're going to have to be out until summer again.
Oh, dear.
In terms of sort of regulatory and compliance hurdles, did you face any starting the company? And if so, what were they, and what advice could you offer someone?
Not sure we did, really. I think probably we sort of all maintained our chartership. We pushed through with our CPD, so we're all ahead of staying advanced of any changes to regulations. I don't think we have come across any particular stumbling blocks. Health and safety aspects have been possibly the most challenging in terms of now being company directors. All of a sudden, you do feel the weight a lot more. The weight of responsibility. It's always been, throughout our career, it's always been our intention to do work safely. But when all of a sudden it's your business, you do have to worry about other people. And, there are times when you have to make health and safety issues crystal clear to other people to make sure they fully understand what's going on. Because there's no accounting for what people do. You can all sit and Google YouTube videos of people's stupid, dangerous behavior because they're not engaging their brain when they work. So it's really important to make sure that before every site we go onto, we have that key tool of, right, this is our plan. This is what we're sticking to. We're not deviating from this. Any deviation from this has got to be risk assessed. Please don't do anything differently. That's been the hardest thing. We've got really great training. There's an amazing, I'll come on to 2 actually. There's JNC Safety Services down here in Truro, which has offered us brilliant courses, loads and loads of great advice. So whenever I need a specific risk assessment looking at maybe something like trailer risk assessments, I've gone to them and said, guys, can you help me write this risk assessment? Am I missing anything? What else needs to be included? So they'll come back with commentary or rewrite it entirely. And we've done our triple STS and SMSTS training courses through those guys as well, which have been fantastic. We've got boys doing their NVQ soil technicians, 2 of the first in the country to sign on, and hopefully they'll be 2 of the first in the country to get their actual official certification for those NVQs as well, which would be really good. But we're doing those through Equip at Julian Lovell.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. We're looking at a number of courses that he's thinking about bringing down for us, but he comes and does our trip hammer, does the audit on the rig. So those are the regulations which probably the change can have the most impact on our day-to-day work. The safety aspect of it is one thing that you just cannot fall asleep on the job and lose sight of. It's so critical. You've got to keep ahead of those regs. So keeping in touch with your safety team, that's the most important thing.
Okay. And then in terms of leadership, have you ever kind of faced any leadership challenges, and how did you deal with them?
Do you mean like between us directors? We argue like cat and dog all the time about stuff. And that's fine. That's part of the process that we go through. I think it's great that everybody has their own opinion on different things and different projections as to the way we should go forward, different places we should spend money and invest. Sometimes ideas come forward and we look and we just go, oh, really? What are you thinking? And then other times it's like, oh yeah, I hadn't considered that. That's brilliant. Yeah, we should do that. But yeah, there's always going to be, we've got 4 people at the top of the tree and we're all really quite strong-minded individuals. So there's always going to be that potential for clash. I want it done this way. Why is it not getting done this way? And I'm probably the most obstinate out of all of them, but it is what it is. It's part of growing as a team. It's part of understanding where the limitations are and what everyone else needs to do their job. It's fine. There's no leadership challenges because we all impact different areas of the business differently. Or indeed, if someone says you're doing it wrong, it's all our business. You have to stop and listen. Yeah. You can't just ignore that.
You can't just go straight in and ignore everyone, because that's how partnerships break up and turn sour, I suppose.
Yeah, indeed. And again, I am not the expert on how we get our site works done. I can manage it, I can sort it out, but then really Carl is the man on the field. He's the one that will be up there saying, and he sometimes phones me up and goes, have you seen the access? We're not going to be able to get in here, or we can't quite get round. And then sometimes it all has to change. Maybe I've been overconfident in my appraisal of it and gone, yeah, we can sort that out. We can certainly get in there. And it's not a case of me then being bullish and yelling down the phone, get on with it and sort it out. It's a case of Carl and having to be sort of man on the ground to mitigate the situation and come up with alternatives for how we do it. And that's the sort of the way we go. That's how we run, really.
Sure. So you mentioned previously that the NVQ soil technicians via Equip at Julian Lovell. So in terms of apprenticeships for ground investigation engineers, is that something that's been considered by yourselves?
I didn't think there was any.
Apparently there is. Apparently you can do an apprenticeship in ground investigation. I don't know a huge amount more than just saying that sentence, quite frankly. I've seen it.
Unless this is new, like 6 months new,
yeah,
we were looking last year for apprenticeship roles, and I don't think there were any.
I thought I've seen a few posts on kind of LinkedIn about this. Let me just put it in there and see what...
We applied to a couple of the local colleges, and they said, well, hang on a minute, well, what apprenticeships, how does this work? What can you offer?
Yeah.
And they couldn't find anything, and we couldn't find anything.
I thought, so we've got something here from one of the larger contractors here. I'm not sure what the actual of civil engineering.
So that might be it. They might be sort of running their own in-house NVQ, own in-house sort of apprenticeship training. We're not capable of setting up an apprenticeship scheme ourselves. Okay. We would look at sort of adopting an apprentice who is running on a scheme.
Yeah.
We're not skilled enough to be able to dictate what the scheme would be.
No, I've got, so it's a GI Tech team leader halfway through the 3-year level 7 degree apprenticeship in geotechnical engineering at the University of Birmingham. And that's with a little known company called Soccertech. So I think there's something out there, but without researching it more thoroughly. Okay. But I've heard about it before. Yeah. I think I've posted about it in these terms, and I imagine Julian would have some knowledge of that.
God, if only he knew what he was talking about. We had Jules was my first boss.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jules was my first real boss. Saturday job, pub jobs, whatever. Jules was my first real boss.
Yeah.
And we got together a couple of weeks back. He came down and did our SPTs. He came down and worked with the boys on their MVQs, and we got together and went to the pub. And it was fantastic, and it was also a little bit heartbreaking because it was 2 decades ago when I was working with him now, and it's just so much water under the bridge. So such a fantastic time when I was at Soil Mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
It was really good fun. Just the variety of schemes and the drillers we worked with was amazing. Yeah, having Jules as a boss was great. It was always good fun. But yeah, and then 2 decades seem to have passed, and here we are. Remarkable. 2.5 decades, maybe.
It goes quick.
All good fun.
Especially when you're having fun in ground investigations.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. I think I was there when Julian's wife, had their first child. And now Jules is telling me about the boy, and he's going on to do this, that, and the other. Like grown-up adult stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my goodness. And you realise, it's 2.5 decades.
Yes. Time goes pretty quickly. So in terms of how do you maintain quality control and ensure that your team delivers top-notch service?
So we've got quality systems in place. So we're not ISO 14001 or 8001 or whichever it is. Those are a couple of the standards or their equivalents. That's probably what we are going to be looking at as well. But that, again, is an investment.
Okay.
That's not something which is quick or easy to achieve, but we will push that in the next couple of years.
Did you break that down a little bit? What you kind of need to do in order to get the ISO accreditation for those things?
If you like the show, please subscribe now.
It's about unified systems. It's about properly unified systems and compliance. So it's about making sure that everything you do is pitch perfect and in line with the systems that you have in place. So you will have a quality standard, as we have a quality standard. But for us not having the structure in place, everything is a little bit more flexible with what we do. Sticking to an ISO system, it is rigid. It's rigid to a point.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the appeals of having it, is that anyone that employs a company who is ISO registered knows that their systems are watertight from start to finish. From conception to fruition, it is a chain that is manageable and accountable all the way through. Now, we have that. But it's a lot more simplified processes involved in what we do and how we do it. Getting to the ISO 8000, 4001, whatever it's going to be, getting to those stages is an investment in time and process, and even third-party skills coming in and helping us get there. Yeah, it is an investment. It's an investment in time.
Sure. No, it sounds, and again, that's kind of to get to that company who does have the ISO, again, that starts to put you at a slightly higher barrier to entry, doesn't it? Or quite a lot higher barrier to entry with the investment and the processes in place.
Yeah, I mean, it's the level of quality that everyone really needs to be looking to adopt.
Okay.
But working to get there requires money.
Well,
and it is important, perhaps, if you are tendering for term contracts, infrastructure jobs, it's really important. Big schemes want to see that you have everything nailed down tight. I think when it comes down to smaller schemes, the sort of work that we do, people are happy with in-house quality standards, quality systems. So that's how we manage at the minute. It's a one day, we'll get round to it, project, that one.
Yeah, sure. So how do you build and maintain strong relationships with clients in a competitive industry like ground investigation?
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, it's fairly unforgiving at the minute. No one goes out there with a view of making a mistake, an error, an omission. No one goes and does that. No one gets up in the morning and deliberately sort of goes, all right, today.
Finding the right staff is hard, really hard. At GI Rec Limited, we understand the ground investigation market inside out and can make all the difference to your recruitment woes. You need to concentrate on running the business, which is very difficult to do without the correct number of qualified staff. we can help you get your time back and lower your stress levels. We only work with talented, referenced, and often entirely exclusive candidates across the ground engineering sector. Wouldn't that be nice? It's not a dream, it's a reality for many of our happy customers. Get in touch with the team now to book a call. Just email info@girec.co.uk to book a call.
But sometimes things happen. Sometimes things crop up. Sometimes it happens on site where, I don't know, you try and justify your actions with regards to a certain limitation or something, and it might not be in line with what the client was expecting. It can change quite quickly. It's about managing relationships, being on the phone, good communications, detailing as much detail. That's poor alliteration. It's giving as much detail at tender stage to describe to a client exactly what we're going to do. Okay. We are doing this in this location. We aim to do this many boreholes. We are going to be delivering that, and then sticking to it. And if you can't stick to it, justify it. Justify it early. Don't wait until the end of the job and go, well, we couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Be on the phone to the client now. Say to them whilst you're on site, we can't. It's not happening. This isn't happening. Otherwise, it just comes as a rude surprise to clients at the end of a long period, because GI work is a long period. From the minute you start writing your RAMs through to delivering the end report, 6-8 weeks as a minimum. Yeah. And then if a client gets a rude awakening at the end of the 8 weeks when they start reading their GI report, they're not going to be very happy with you. So good communication. Yeah, you can't go far wrong with that. Detail what you're going to do, stick to it, and communicate.
Sure. And then in terms of, do you have a kind of business development process kind of long term for the company? Do you go to meetups, local conferences, all of that sort of stuff? How do you...
Not as much as we should. No, not as much as we should. We try and meet up with clients as often as possible to actually see them, say hi. I went out for dinner the other day and had a really lovely meeting with a team, and we talked about work much. It was mostly about rugby or hockey.
Yeah.
It was really nice. Or the family, the kids, holidays, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was really nice. So I think a lot of this is about two aspects of it. Firstly, is being professional enough to be able to deliver what you say you can deliver. And secondly, is being personable enough to be approachable and have these conversations and chats.
No, I agree.
I can't say much more than that, really.
I've kind of just started venturing out and going to meet clients, essentially, or potential clients face to face. And every time I do, barely speak about the industry or exactly anything they want. It's just a chat about kids, holidays, things going wrong. And then at the end, I think, did I do that right? But
yeah, did I mention which company I was from?
Yeah, like, what was the intention behind it? I'm not sure.
I think that's the thing. If you turn up with coffee and donuts, people are going to be more inclined to spend a bit of time with you and have a chat. I don't know, there's a certain amount of life skills that come to talking to people, and sort of that emotional intelligence to figure out, are they looking like they're chatty? Is this a person to talk to? Or it's a lot of that. It's just about getting out and meeting people and having a chat.
It is. And I suppose in terms of marketing, is there any marketing at all?
We've no formal structure for marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, this is one of the things. We've been pretty lucky. We've hit the ground running. We've had a busy couple of years.
Yeah.
So our plans for growth involve more staff. Our plans for growth involve more techniques, adding more skill sets. And then hopefully this will sort of be an organic growth. Growth has to be manageable.
Mm-hmm.
There is absolutely no point pitching to everybody all at once and then finding yourself flooded with commissions. It's unmanageable. You can't do it. You'll destroy the team. It needs to be an organic system of growth. And that can be aggressive. That's fine. But it has to be manageable and sustainable. Otherwise, you're just overpromising.
So did you hire professional advisors and consultants for legal, financial, and operational guidance? And how important were they in the success so far of the business? And I know you mentioned about the insurance, so that was very important. You mentioned about speaking with some other company owners, Simon from Ruddleston, for instance. What else kind of advisors you really had to help guide you so you didn't fall straight into pitfalls?
I think that, you can have as much advice as you want, really. It is as simple as that. You can be bullish about it and just push on and crack on and do it. But a couple of sage words of advice that were given to me were, get good admin, get good legal.
Right.
Yeah, it's very true. Those are the two areas where you need to protect yourself. You have to have admin to be able to fall back on for the day-to-day. They have to be good. Without admin running all the stuff behind the scenes, filing things away, putting bits of emails into places where they should live, you just can't really flow through the work very easily. It's good. I'm probably the worst person for getting emails and then just letting them sit on my emails and not filing. So I have people phoning me up kind of going, have you got the latest drawings for this? Yeah. Did I not? No, you didn't put them in the file, Mike. It's like, okay, sorry, guys. But it's, if we can CC in admin at the same time, then it just happens. It just flows. It just works. Legal is great from the perspective of just making sure the business is structured properly, particularly if you're going into partnership, making sure that the shareholders agreement is in place. And he offered us other aspects of guidance as well. So it was, all really, really good advice. So we had legal, got some good admin. Accountants are accountants. I think we have to sort of poke them occasionally to get things done, get certain tasks done. But apart from that, they are fine. I can't comment either way as to whether it's favourable or unfavourable. And apart from that, it was sort of friendly competitor advice or advice from clients, really, as to what they're expecting. So, you can ask for it and you can listen to as much as you want. And you can pay for advice. It all just depends on what you need to achieve.
Sure. So when you mentioned about legal, what about terms of business to send out to clients, essentially? How did you go from that? I mean, I think lots of companies, when they start, they just take someone else's and jig it around a little bit. But of course, if there's any actual issues.
There's always going to be areas of that, but you need to make sure that your insurers are comfortable with what you're promising in those terms.
Yeah.
So everything forms into that business plan. The AGS have really good web resources on terms of business, risk management, liability management. Definitely start there. I think they've got sort of site forms for health and safety and auditing stuff as well. So the AGS website is dynamite, really, really good. You can pull a lot of resources from that, and that offers a lot of advice on terms for liability. So resource that, definitely.
I think I know what you're referring to. They just have a sea of PDF documents you can scroll down and have a look at.
Yeah, it's absolutely dynamite. And I think I looked for something the other day. I apologize, AGS, if it was updated and I missed it. I think there was one thing there that I saw that wasn't updated recently or in line, but the rest of it is, it's top-notch information. Really, really good resource. Okay.
And in terms of, so we've got the AGS, which provides fantastic. I'm just thinking for people that are considering starting a company, growing a company. So that could be perhaps one place that you go to gain some advice. Do you know of any other places, kind of online, good resource pools, that sort of thing?
Crikey. I'm trying to think of what other advice people would need. I think, you're not going to get a graduate starting up their own business. You're not going to get a graduate going into this line of work straight away to start up their own business. So I think probably a lot of the people that are thinking of maybe leaving their current roles and starting up on their own, they've probably got the advice that they need already, or at least have access to it. So there are certain areas like the nuances. AGS are fantastic for that. Talking to people who are vastly more experienced than myself, people like Julian Lovell, that's all really good advice. If you've got old mentors, old bosses, have a chat to those guys. They've been there, they've done it. Speak to them.
Sure. The ground investigation sector is constantly evolving. How do you stay ahead of industry trends and changes?
Yeah, it's really difficult. I think it's so easy to get caught up in this, we do this work.
Yeah.
But the thing that keeps me awake at night is the Uber moment. Have you heard of the Uber moment?
No.
It's like Uber came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Came out of nowhere, totally left field. And it revamped how taxis and cabs worked. Yeah. I mean, it destroyed the market. And there was no warning. 1 minute Uber wasn't there, the next minute Uber was there. And it just rejigged everything. And there's a business plan which says every industry has an Uber moment coming.
Yes.
You just don't know what it's going to be. You just don't. It's always going to be that risk of new technologies, new advances coming along, which render some aspect or all aspects of the business obsolete. And I don't know how you can protect yourself from that. Obviously, training, trying to stay ahead of the latest, reading all the white papers. It's just about trying to garner as much knowledge on where the next risk is coming from or how it's going to develop. Business risk is coming from and how it's going to develop. If you think about it crudely, what we do is dig into the ground, take soil samples, test soil samples, and it's still a very, the fundamentals of that haven't changed in a long, long time. Of course, safety standards have changed, quality standards have changed, the way we get stuff out of the ground has changed slightly, but we are still digging and drilling to find this information. I don't know. Maybe one day that's going to change. Maybe one day something else is going to come along. I haven't got a clue. I don't see it changing in my lifetime. Not really. I mean, everyone said when I first started, I can remember I went out at soil mechanics and everyone said, oh, look, there's a cable percussion rig. And I can remember the first one I ever saw. And I was told on that day, this won't be here in another 5 years. Cable percussion's going to be outlawed. It won't be here in another 5 years. It's no good. And yet last week I was using John White on a site in St Austell, cable percussion driller who I've known since the start of my career. Absolutely fantastic man. One of the loveliest men in the world. 2.5 decades later, after someone told me when I first started, cable percussion is still going, still got its uses. So I don't know. I don't know whether it will change in my career or not.
Technology-wise, when you think about the drones and photogrammetry and LiDAR, and I suppose it must have affected some work demands of people who would scale the cliff.
There's still going to be a necessity for some of those works. And it's like drones, there are aspects with land surveying and, they can do amazing things in minutes. So it is going to impact certain areas. I don't think it's going to impact our GI works quite so much. It's going to inform on it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to impact or detract from our GI works quite so much. It is just another tool, another string to our bow as to how we collect that information. I don't really see it as a substitute. Well, yeah, it would be a substitute for dangling off cliffs, certainly. But there's still a degree of interpretation behind it that's got to be sorted out. You've still got to look at the data. Honestly, it would be lovely to be pushing to go green on everything that we do.
Yeah.
But I don't know how the heck we can achieve. I mean, we do not have the budget to buy brand new Rivians, electric 4x4s, or what's the Tesla ones, the Tesla 4x4s. There's no way. There's just no way. I think it will come, it will happen, but it needs to be at an affordable price. And at the minute, 4x4s are dear enough, let alone electric ones. So pushing environmental standards, I think we can all help to improve. Even if it's just switching energy tariffs to something better, even if it's just making sure that your vehicles are in best condition for diesel consumption, even if it's just looking at the, eco cleaners that you use in the toilets, we can all push to help, and there's different levels of that. But at the minute, I don't see how we could transition to I don't see how we could transition much further than we do already.
Yeah.
Now, if we think about having excavators on site, sometimes we need great big excavators, 13, 21 tonners. They don't come in electric. That drinks an awful lot of diesel. Compressors on site drink an awful lot of diesel. And I just don't know. I'm not aware of any alternatives to that scale and nature of machine. Yeah.
I suppose it's something, if the industry have it in mind and make some way towards it and, potentially keep it in mind and make some improvements over time, then that's at least the starting point, is it? Because so many green things you have to pass on, I suppose, because it's going to cost more money, and not everyone wants to pay more money. So that's a consideration as well.
And I think it's going to be driven from the suppliers, the resources that we've got available to us for things like plant hire.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone tells me that they can use an electric excavator and it's the same efficiency and it's the same cost as a diesel one, fine. That's brilliant. Let's do that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen. It's not there, is it? Unless I don't know of something. I mean, of course you can get electric rigs. Of course you can get electric window sampling rigs. You can get electric cable percussion rigs, I think, as well. But these are all for fairly specialist, targeted markets, like, I'm not going to say confined spaces, but for exhaust gases.
Basements, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're going to see many electric rigs as standard out in the field.
No.
Until they become standard, until they become that level.
I would imagine turning up to a ground investigation site and they'll all just be on charge, and then
That's right.
Right. The rig's just sitting there. It's going to be 9 hours for it charges. And I'm sure, of course, it will get much quicker in charging and in capacity. The battery will get much better, but it's not right now. But I'm sure it will.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult. Looking at our waste resources, trying to recycle as much as possible, we can only do the small stuff at the minute. Making sure that the materials that we use maybe can be reused, things like plastic core boxes, the rhino tubs, stuff like that. The stuff which is going to give us better longevity rather than just the cheap softwood core boxes, which are, 2 uses, they're rotten through, you throw them away. So maybe there's areas of improvement there that we can look at. Resourcing tools and consumables from sustainable suppliers. These are all things that I think we do in the background. I don't know how much of a record I keep of it, but these are all certainly areas that we're looking to build upon, without a doubt. We're going to be led to some extent, I think.
Okay, so what advice would you give someone considering starting their own ground investigation company?
The absolute tip-top one is get your cash flow projections right. When you're using suppliers, subcontractors, and those invoices start popping up in your inbox, they don't stop.
Yeah.
They don't stop. They just keep coming. And there's, most people don't care that you're a new startup. There's no grace. There's no favors. It's just, there's the invoice, pay it, and you have to pay it. I mean, these guys are providing a service to you. You have to pay it. And one of the things that we wanted to do was try and be as ethical as possible with our suppliers, try and pay as quickly as possible. Look, we'll get there one day, but right now that's not happening. I mean, its cash flow is dictated by the people that are paying us. And I'd love to say that we can pay on quick payment terms, but honestly, we can't. That was one of the things that's probably been the biggest disappointment with setting up the business is actually we are very constrained by how we treat our suppliers and subcontractors purely due to cash flow from above.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because, again, a lot of these guys, a lot of the subcontractors that we use, they're all local teams. They're people that we use a lot. They're friends.
Yeah.
I mean, we use the big labs, Geotech. We go to GSTL in South Wales. They're an amazing crowd, really competent, really good fun to deal with. I think at the minute we are working with Debts for our chem lab, I think. But we've got great relationships with these people. One of the original aims was trying to be as fair and quick as possible with paying. But it's really hard to achieve that.
Yeah.
It's really hard. You can't pay someone on a 14-day payment term if you're waiting on money on a 60-day payment term. Everything does have to reflect, unfortunately.
It's good to pay quickly, but in order to do that, we'll take more money out of the bank because if you didn't fund it all, then you would have to go outside and pay a percentage on it, which is annoying.
No, I think it's at the minute we're striking that even keel balance between managing our bank resources and paying subcontractors and suppliers. I mean, it's important trying to keep ahead of another VAT bill. Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. And these things can come, well, certainly from my naivety, they can come along pretty quickly. And if you haven't made reparations for that in your budget, then all of a sudden you find yourself going, oh, crikey, wow. So you do have to have some resources available in the bank, and it's striking that balance between getting money out promptly to suppliers and giving yourself that buffer.
Sometimes you can think you've got more than you have. Some of the ones hitting the account, you think, wow, but then you pay everything and you go, where did that go?
When you add sums up, it doesn't seem to come to as much as when you add sums down. It's gone. Oh, right. Okay, brilliant. But it's and I suppose this is sort of one of the really big important reasons why it's important to keep track of your WIP. Managing
your what?
You see, that won't reflect on zero. Your work in progress. So the jobs that you've got ongoing, which maybe you are resourcing, but you are not invoicing just yet. Okay. So it's the schemes that you've started, but you might not be invoicing until the end of the project.
So you mentioned earlier on, so let's say the earliest 6 to 8 weeks from conception to completion of a project. So then I presume you would send an invoice at the end for the majority of the clients. Is that right? And then give them the payment terms. So it could be months.
Yeah, indeed. When the payment terms are agreed at the start of contract.
Yeah.
So we won't muck around with that at the end and then start demanding money. That's got to be agreed up front as to what's going to get paid and when.
Yeah.
Or at least that's the plan. So, there's that. Like I say, for smaller clients, it's easier to say, okay, your report is ready. Please make payment and we'll issue the report. For the larger clients, then yes, we are reliant on more than likely their terms and conditions. So yeah, you need that buffer in place. Managing your WIP, you can have a considerable amount invested in your work in progress, which isn't realized on the bottom line of zero. It doesn't add up. It doesn't compute through. So it's about keeping track of that as well, because it can be a little bit demoralizing sometimes thinking, doing all this work and it doesn't seem to reflect, but actually you're carrying a lot as well, which you haven't invoiced yet. And that's got to be reflected in your productivity.
It's hard to see when you look at it financially. Obviously, I've run a recruitment company, and it takes a while from placing someone to then eventually them starting and eventually them paying an invoice and it coming back.
Yeah.
And you can have days where you think you haven't achieved anything today, but you're doing the work for it comes all back in the next week. But if you look at it you think if we give a rebate period for clients, if we place a permanent member of staff, so up to any point of the last day of that rebate period, something can potentially go wrong. So that money you think is there is now, where's that gone? It's difficult to manage properly cash flow of a company, I think.
Yeah, it is. And it's about making sure that you know where the money is and when it's due to come out as well.
Yeah.
That's really important.
How important is it to be resilient in this line of work and stay motivated, or how do you stay motivated through the tougher times?
Really lucky with my team. I say my team, the team. They're just awesome.
Okay.
If ever I'm annoyed about something or frustrated and bored with work, I'll just start Teams with them and go on and chat to them about something and just say, no, I'm only speaking to you because I'm bored. I just don't want to do this for the next half hour. So let's just have a chat and
good support.
Talk things through. Yeah, it's really good to be able to have people that you can reflect and bounce off. And if you can get out onto site, if you're not sat behind your desk all the time, that's fantastic as well. Actually get your boots muddy. That's really good. It's sort of a good mind break. But apart from that, the resilience, it can be demoralizing chasing the money sometimes. It can be sort of that okay, we've done the work.
Yeah.
It's got to get paid. It can be really hard. It comes. Unless there is an ISG or a Midas moment, it comes.
Yeah.
It's just making sure that it's making sure that your model is ironed out strong enough to be able to float through those periods.
Yeah.
And like I say, when I get teasy about it, when I get tired about it, I just jump on and talk to the guys and we have a chat, we have a cup of coffee and sit and talk about the weekend or the dogs or the kids or whatever it's going to be. And we just try and switch off for 20 minutes.
Yeah, a bit of a mental holiday.
It's really important. I tend to be at my desk at sort of 6, maybe 6:15 in the morning. And I like that because it means the first few hours I can get admin paperwork, emails done without much disturbance. So I'm not complaining. But then all of a sudden you realize it's 1 o'clock. Hang on a minute. And I've only just left my desk a couple of times to get coffee. And, you have to take that period to sort of actually like a reboot.
Yeah.
Like reboot a computer, you have to get away and reboot. And I'll do that. I'll take the dogs at the park for a walk or go online and to the team and have a chat to them. You've got to have a bit of a thick skin.
Yeah, you do. I suppose so. In terms of being employed, permanent position with a company and running your own business, it's famously for the business more hours, more grueling. I mean, not everyone's sat at their desk at 6:15, although there are plenty of people out there in the industry who do a lot of hours. But what's your kind of typical hours for the week?
Mate, it can absolutely vary. Some days you can be sat at your desk all day. Like I said, 6 o'clock in the morning through till 6 o'clock in the evening. I try not to work late.
Yeah.
I cut off. In fact, my efficiency just plummets. So I'll just switch off and end up writing trite drivel and getting it all wrong and then redoing it the next day.
Yeah.
So I don't. I find I'm much more efficient in the mornings. Yesterday, my efficiency was absolutely zero. I ended up having to go and wait remotely for a courier to turn up who never turned up. I got nothing achieved yesterday, apart from cleaning in the truck I was in. That was it. I took the time to clean the truck whilst I was there. It was just junk rubbish day. And you have to remember that all the time whilst you're waiting on things like that, emails are piling up, reports are piling up.
Yes.
It can be hard. We can do 12, 13-hour site days sometimes. It's really, really varied, and it can be difficult to manage.
So where do you see Karn Geo in the next 5 to 10 years?
So the previous 2 years, we've done really well. We've grown in skills, we've grown in staff, we've grown in turnover. Any more growth, I really need it to be manageable. Like we covered earlier on, it's no good leafleting the entire country. You're just not going to be able to fulfill it.
Exactly.
So the growth needs to come. And I think this winter is going to be a fairly key period for us. Budget coming up. But also, this is the first overwinter with our aerator. This is the first season we're going to be actively looking to get the drone out and about in anger, and all the while maintaining our GI bread and butter work through, which we love. I mean, we absolutely love it. But we have to look at perhaps broadening our skill sets just to weather any ups and downs in the market coming, just to give us the capability of sort of switching up income streams. That's all. Just being a little bit protective of the future.
Sure. Okay. Well, pretty much on the last question now. So the ground investigation industry will change in the coming years, and how are you preparing for those changes? Which kind of touches a little bit on the previous question about technology, but so if you have to take it to a different.
Yeah, but I sort of go back and reflect on where I started and the changes that have been made since. I think, mate, there's so many different things that have changed now. I mean, John White is the exception, or one of the exceptions to the rule. Amazing cable tool driller, and it's always been the loveliest man ever. Working with him has been fantastic. But I can remember when I started on site that drillers ruled the roost. Absolutely ruled the roost. And God, you didn't cross them. You didn't have a counter word to say back to him. You just went, yeah, all right, mate, fine, no problem. And then try and get on the phone to your boss and say, oh, he's doing it this way instead. So I think probably the industry is becoming a lot more approachable. A lot of the drillers that are out there now are just the best guys in the world. Really good fun, incredibly competent professionals, just professionals. I mean, people sometimes say, oh, they're skilled construction workers and this, that, and the other. But no, they're abject professionals. They've got a job to do. They've got information to obtain, and they do it by and large incredibly well, and usually under very difficult circumstances. And they still manage to do it and be friendly and approachable. I think the industry has changed a lot in that aspect since we started. The geo-environmental role, I can remember when everything was geotech led, and then we'd take like 1 or 2 samples for geo-environmental, a bit of contam testing. Now everything is sort of a little bit more in favour of geo-environmental. It's all part of the sort of sustainability package that is being pushed through. Everybody wants sort of materials reuse, soils reuse, save costs, better for the environment, fantastic. So we found things now being more heavily weighted for geo-environmental. I think it's all going to grow on that basis, really. I mean, we've got limited resources in this country. We have to make the best of what we've got here. The industry safety standards, I think, are constantly improving. I mean, we work to probably, mate, you've only got to go on LinkedIn and look at what the drillers do in the States and the rigs that they work on, unguarded mess, just dangerous. They have fatalities, and it's a terrible place, absolutely terrible. And yet, this country, we've got really high, really good quality systems in place for safety when working on rigs. So it's great as it is, and it will get better.
Health and safety is very prominent in the UK. I have no idea what it's like in the United States. I know plenty of people listen to the podcast in the United States. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they do it.
I think a few years ago, I Googled statistics on fatalities in the drilling industry in the States.
Is that inclusive of oil and gas then, or is this just the kind of geotechnical?
It will do, but this is still drilling related, so entanglement issues, and it was still considerable, I believe. I don't know. I'm sorry, prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong. But when you look at the standards that we've got over here, what we've adopted, how it's changed, how it's being embraced. I mean, it used to be that people would complain. bloody cage on a rig. It's slowing me down. I can't make day rate. Meterage is just slow. Now it's embraced, and it's fantastic. That'll get better. New technologies, I don't know. I've still not had the opportunity to work on a sonic rig yet. I've still not had a client who's had the budget to spend a sonic rig, but I really want to get one of those on a job soon. I don't know. I don't know, pal. I don't know, just keep abreast of it as best as possible and try and adopt as much of it as we can as well to stay relevant.
Fair enough. So in terms of people contacting yourself in relation to perhaps any questions, is that okay via LinkedIn or what's the...
100%.
Not too many.
Hopefully I've said nothing out of turn. Air your complaints as well. Let's have those. But if there's anyone out there that is thinking of this and they want to set up their own business, then give us a shout and we'll see whether we can have a chat over a cup of coffee or something. It's not a big deal. It's great. There are pitfalls. So as long as you're conscious of those, proceed at your own.
We'll link in the description on the podcast homepage to the AGS website, also to your LinkedIn profile as well.
Thank you.
And of course to Karn Geo Services, which that goes without saying. Very good to have you on today to discuss more on a business sense as well, which I think is really the first time I've actually done that. And if you read the description of the podcast, it is aimed at that. But of course, there's a lot more people in the industry than people that run businesses in the industry. But thank you very much for your time. I hope you've had a reasonable time.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think just as long as I'll stick the occasional caveat in that this is the experience that we've had with our level of business. I'm sure that other people out there have had different experiences. So I'm only just relaying what we found for the past couple of years. But cool for a chat if you want anytime.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Ground Investigation Podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, then please support the show by leaving it a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. For more information on what was discussed in this episode, click the link in the show notes now.